G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to the third test season, Manufacturers Cup. We're here for round 3, which is actually the final round of this one, a nice quick little season to sort of tide us over until the official ones start. But we're here at Trial Mountain for what I think is the first time in one of my videos. So when we go out for qualifying today, which will be in Group 4 for manufacturers, of course having chosen Genesis, we'll be piloting the Genesis G70 Group 4. We're actually going to stay on board for this outlap and take a nice little tour of Deep Forest, so we don't have to sort of rush through it as we're going through a qualifying lap or whatever. We can have a nice little sighting lap, an installation lap of I nearly said Deep Forest, of Trial Mountain. So we've got that fast flowing section to open up. That'll be really tricky coming out in full speed. We've got this awkward corner in here that seems to tighten on the way through, as well as sort of going up over a crest which sort of levels out towards the exit, so it could be easy to understeer. We've got this weird little corner where you're apexing right on sort of a foliage embankment. We've got this tricky change of direction here to get us over to the right hand side to take the left hander, which is this one here, once again right up against an embankment with a little bit of dirt falling down on the track, and we head out onto this massively long back straight. I don't yet have the figure for how long this straight is, but I'd imagine it's probably a little over a kilometre long. So we're heading down here. This is one of the adjustments from the original version. This straight is massively extended to improve the chances of an overtake at the upcoming 180 degree loop. Is it a stretch to call it a hairpin? I think it is a hairpin. It's a complete 180 loop back. But anyway, we exit through here, up the hill, through this tight twisty section where overtaking might be difficult, and we head over this crest, braking on the crest for an unsighted right-hander heading down a hill. So really tricky spot and easy to get wrong. We plunge down the hill here into a compression right as we're on the brakes to take a tight left-hander this time, and then we're going to head down the hill towards the controversially reprofiled final Trial Mountain chicane. It is a lot tighter, and sort of I honestly agree with the argument that it ruins the flow of the track, because especially that initial left-hander is quite painful to try and get right, because it is just so slow and difficult to get, especially the G70 turn. The four-wheel drive nature and the short first gear on the G70 make it difficult. So quick, what the hell? But anyway, we have to do qualifying, and I thought I'd get a bit of a slipstream, but the Subaru WRX Group 4 is massively OP, like really, really OP, insanely OP, so OP that it should be illegal. You saw how far away the WRX ahead of me completely drove away from me. So we're contending with this the entire race. It's the Subaru WRX Grand Prix, where every other car is a Group 4.5 car, including this G70. It's also a fuel-saving race, but we'll get into that as we get into the actual race. But as we head through here, you can see twisting through all the little changes of direction. It's quite a busy first half and second, or quite a busy opening lap, part of the lap, and a busy closing part of the lap. But that is sandwiched between two long straights, which kind of gives you a chance to calm down. But yeah, that WRX you can see is becoming nothing more than a little red pixel in the distance. We've got Yoshi Island, who's pulled off to the left-hand side in the McGann Trophy, and that is him out of the way for this qualifying lap. Make sure we get it turned here nice and tight all over that sort of yellow part that would probably be off the limit of the lane if this was being used as a real road, but in the context of a racetrack, it's all within track limits. It's pretty much a pseudo street circuit because there's walls lining the majority of the track here, so you know, we've definitely got that to keep in mind as well. Make sure we don't hit the walls or whatever, which is obviously quite easy to do, especially at the parts of the track where you've literally got complete walls lining right to the track edge. But we head through this awkward chicane. It's a really sort of clunky chicane. Like, that is the clunkiest chicane I've ever driven. Even clunkier than Nürburgring Grand Prix. Even clunkier than maybe Catalunya. But we crossed the line there with a 58.5, which is actually quite a decently fast lap. 58.5 though, it's not even that bad. Given the time trial record was a 56.0, I think in comparison to that, it's quite poor, but like in the grand scheme of it, it's not too bad here. We get to another qualifying lap. We set a 58.8, so not quite an improvement. We're 2/10 down here. We make a mistake at this corner. So instead of giving Meta 7 the slipstream, which he arguably does not need in that Subaru WRX, we drop in behind him here. We let him go through. He flashes the hazards to say thank you, and we've got Twitchy behind. Is he flashing the headlights? I think he is. So I'm not sure if he wanted me to get out of the way, but I sort of go over to the left-hand side here because he's flashing his lights for some reason. He follows me, so I realise, okay, he wants slipstream. Rightio, I'll give it to him, but I don't want to hold up his lap, so I decide to sort of take one for the team here and just go really, really deep into here, and it looks really terrible, like just completely slamming into the barrier, but I actually avoid all forms of damage on my car. You can see on the damage indicator in between the tyre wear indicator on the bottom left of your screen, there's absolutely no sign of any body parts flashing up in red. So I binned off that lap for the sake of a little bit of slipstream for Twitchy at the end. He doesn't end up completing that lap, so I'm like, okay, I'll drop in ahead of you here if you want me to, because I don't mind giving Twitchy a bit of slip, but he doesn't take it, so that's sort of the end of that story. We go for one more lap, but ultimately I wasn't sure what he wanted me to do, but ultimately any further laps in that session were no improvement for me. So we are going to be starting in 14th for this one, but it now shows you a required tyre and minimum pit stops, which is racing medium and 1 respectively, but for now we get to enjoy the brand new Manufacturers Cup introduction. I'm going to start at 20 k's an hour, you watch. Lovely as always, Polyphony Digital always do a wonderful job at the little theatrical introductions, but we'll move on to the race. We start in the middle of the chicane, which is a little bit annoying when there's a main straight that's probably a kilometre long. I don't know why that we don't just do standing starts, just blanket, like Formula 1. Formula 1 do a standing start at every race, it's just what Formula 1 does. Supercars is the same. Why can't GT World Series do it? I don't know, but anyway, let's get underway. We've lost the slipstream of Takuan, which is no good. Sashimi's lost the slipstream of me, which is good, because I don't want people heckling my rear backside as I'm trying to settle into the race here. But as for the race, the strategy for this race, we mentioned very briefly before, it's a mandatory one stop, and the medium tyres are available. The medium tyres are required. My apologies. The tyres that are available are the racing hard, the racing medium, racing intermediates, and racing wets. But because we are at a circuit based in the Americas, which currently in GT7's current state does not offer any rain effects on any of the tracks, we did not even need to worry about wet weather today. So we're just on the medium and the hard tyres. However, the medium tyres are faster. So even though it's just the one required tyre on the mediums, and that's the softest tyre available, and it forces you to do a pit stop, so it's an absolute no-brainer to just do one pit stop with 2 stints on the medium tyres. Now the interesting thing about that is that there's no stipulation on whether you actually have to change the tyres, so technically you can go do your pit stop whenever you like, and it is just about viable to not change your tyres, and in some cars, not changing the tyres will probably be quicker. So you literally drive into the pits and skip the tyre change, skip the refuel, because it's also a fuel saving race, because the fuel refill rate is 3 litres per second, which is extremely slow. And so yeah, that's pretty much the strategy. You can see someone's actually gone into the pits already. Yoshi Island in the pits at the end of lap 1, looking to do a mega undercut on everybody. But what that will do for Yoshi is it'll just sort of absolutely confirm for sure that they aren't going to reap the benefits of 2 long stints with the maximum tyre wear, which you'd get from a pitting halfway and changing those tyres. We've got Sashimi in my slipstream now, so we're going to have to look out for maybe a move heading into turn 1, which is this really difficult, fast flowing section we talked about on the installation lap. You can see over the rise, over the crest, dipping down through this left-hander, trying to keep it flat out. The car kind of compresses at the apex if you get it dead right, so you can take it flat if you do indeed achieve that. But it's still really difficult to get right as well. So heading down through here, we're just looking to save our fuel and save our tyres at the opening part of this race. I decided to actually go for the early stop because I was sort of in a little bit of traffic there and I didn't quite feel up to practice yet. Just put a tiny splash of fuel in. I didn't feel ultra comfortable, so I thought it would be best if I could just lap on my own without any visual distractions and just focus on my driving. And the way I was to achieve that was to drop away from the rest of the pack with a really early pit stop. Obviously, pitting this early, I skipped the tyre change altogether. Alright, let's play the long game here. And just for the sake of trying to increase some pace so I don't have to short shift as much, I did put a tiny splash of fuel in, just a few percent, like 3 or 4%. That's all I put in, so I don't quite have to short shift as much. My progress has been slowed, thanks to myself getting this penalty at turn 1, just turning in a little too early, and we have to serve that on the main straight. So, as we're heading down the back straight now, this is lap 6. Let's see if we can gain anything. I don't think we're gonna. I was feeling quite deflated after having served that unnecessary penalty. I say unnecessary as in I shouldn't have got it, not unnecessary is that in that I didn't earn it, if that makes sense. But lap 6, halfway through, this is where the alternate strategy will come into play. So a lot of people will pit at the end of lap 6, change their tyres and come out of the pits now on the beginning of lap 7. That's what Meta 7 Gear has done. I think he has changed tyres because he is he was a little ways up the road, and now I've performed the undercut on him, and I had to serve a penalty. So either Meta 7's been stuck in a bit of battling, or he has decided to take a tyre change. You definitely want to short shift to avoid the refill at all costs. I did put a couple of percent in, but I thought because I was doing the undercut, it wasn't so important. I just wanted to lap on my own pretty much, and it's just going to go straight past me. May as well not make it difficult. He wants to work together, okay. I was going to say the thing about this G70, the power peak is right at the end of the rev range, so pretty much the more you short shift, the less power you have. Meta 7 wanted to work together, and that didn't last very long because he went into the back of me here. It was kind of a little bit of an unfortunate coming together. I had a look at the replay after. I think I did brake slightly early, and I also think Meta 7 broke slightly late, and that just compounded to quite a significant collision to the rear bumper of my car. I think Meta 7 also earns himself a penalty. We'll look behind in a minute. There we go, 2 seconds for that little bit of contact there. I'm not that upset over that, to be honest. He didn't complete the move. He gave me another bump draft to get me back up to speed, so it was just a mistake. Mistakes happen. He got his penalty, and we're going to move on. We're sort of already fighting down the back for the minor position, so, you know, if I lose another position, I haven't got much to lose. It's not like I'm fighting up for the win, where that little coming together would be more frustrating. Meta 7 served the penalty and released John Tita driving the Megane Trophy. I'd imagine that Megane is probably a lot better on the tyres than my G70, and we're coming up to the last couple of laps of the race. I think we're going to have 2 laps to go once we cross the line, and that will be a total of 12 laps, or that'll be a total of 10 laps now on my set of tyres that I've done, whereas John has probably taken the tyre stop. Meta 7 has served the penalty and has come back past the pair of us using the superior straight line speed of that WRX. You're beginning to see just why that car is so OP here, because we've got 2 massively long straights, and that WRX is just an absolute rocket ship in a straight line. So yeah, Meta 7's got 2 for 1, despite having also served a penalty in the last couple of laps there. We're beginning to really struggle with the understeer now, because that tyre wear is definitely dropping off quite significantly at this stage. I think I'm coming last. And it was not looking good for me in terms of actually trying to gain any further positions, although Sashimi has had some kind of incident there. He's got himself a half-second penalty and is dropping way off the back of me, and that was the only position I was able to gain before the end. Oh, what a shocking race. What did I do? 55, what? And I was also quite perturbed, let's say. Let's make that the word of the day. Perturbed by the fact that I did a race time that was 10 seconds slower than what I was able to do in a practice. So I did a 24:45, I believe, and I think I did a 24:55 there, which is what that little voice snippet was there. So I finished off in 15th, absolutely nothing to hold on to, so I had literally zippity-doo-dah to lose by going again. So we go out for qualifying on the next slot. He said a 58.7. Gee, I wish I said a 57, but yeah, it's a 58.7, which is a couple of tenths off what I was able to do in the last slot, but it's still not an absolute disaster of a lap time. Unfortunately for me, I'm holed up behind this Gagango guy, which is the guy that punted me at Spa in the last video. So I've once again come up against this bloke, and he's proving to be a little bit of an obstacle at this stage, to say the least. Just sort of clattering barriers, grazing barriers here and there, just not taking the optimal lines. As you can see, he runs wide through here. I'm trying to also complete a lap, which isn't going to plan at all because I'm being held up by this bloke. And it was at this stage here, I was just like, I'm going to end up stuck with this guy for the whole quali session if I don't pull off to the side, which I decide to do here. And this is the end of the quali session, I think. Yeah, so I managed to actually go out for another lap as well. And as we come out of the final chicane, this is the end of the session, so this is my last opportunity to improve. We're going to come up towards the line. It's going to be an improvement to a 58.5. As you can see, when we scroll down, we're 1.1 seconds off the pole time, which is a 57.3, and there was like little bits of tenths there which added up to about another half a tenth. So it was a 58.5, about the same as before. So absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But the only thing that is wrong with it actually is it was only good enough for 14th position on the grid after we finally... Massively long main straight, we're still starting the corner. Come on. After we actually get out of that final chicane, within which we start at about 30 kilometers an hour or something. I think it's 40, but it's still a ridiculously slow pace when you imagine the leader is probably starting probably close to 100 k's an hour. So really ridiculous rolling starts here, and it's definitely something that should be solved with this next era of Gran Turismo, but it's still not solved. It's just such a previous gen issue. But anyway, this race we're going to try the alternate strategy. We're actually going to try for the pit stop halfway, so we've got to make it to lap 6, and in doing so we've also got to avoid as much battling as possible. Somebody's got into the pits at the end of lap 1, I believe it was Yoshi Island once again, so that's us already up one position, up into 13th spot now, and this Rafale guy is looking a little bit on the back foot at this stage. It's probably mostly to do with that car, because I can't exactly recall people speaking too highly of the Honda NSX, especially as much so as the Subaru WRX. So he's probably suffering a bit in his Honda, and we actually have managed to complete a move for I think it's the first time in this whole round. So we managed to get up the inside. Darth Chen follows us through, also driving the Begane Trophy, so I think that car's quite good on its tyres, as I mentioned previously when we were racing John Tita for the minor positions in the previous slot. And as we come out of the final chicane here and fast forward down the main straight, that slipstream assistance for them again just means Darth Chan's able to sail right by, but he sends it deep into turn 1, which throws him all off the racing line for turn 2 and 3, and because it's such a high speed section where you're threading the needle, it makes it really easy for me to just completely return the move, and I'm able to get straight past him at turn 4. So we're coming into a twisty section now. He's not able to get much done. He's still stuck behind me, and it's at this stage where he was forced to try and just sort of change his strategy. He realised he was being held up too much by me, and I'm happy with the decision as well that he's gone into the pits. So that's us up into 11th. I think someone else went in as well by lap 5, so quite a significant skip, but we set some sort of consistent laps there. 2-minute point 1, 2-minute point 5, 2-minute point 3. Really nothing too wrong with those lap times there. A couple more people went into the pits. We're up into 9th, but this is lap 6, which is going to be our in laps. You can see more people in the pits, just some more people with their sort of icons flashing up indicating they've gone into the pit lane, and I'm going to join the clan. I'm going to peel off to the left hand side, chuck on a fresh set of mediums, which I didn't do last time. The other thing, alright, I feel like I'm doing a lot better this time. I can just have a fuss-free second stint as I was. Whatever this result is, I'll take it. Because I feel quite limited by my car here. The other thing is that I'm not going to be putting any fuel in either. Also, how beautiful is this livery? Thanks very much to Scotty for making me this livery. You'll see him down in the comment section quite a bit. He made me some fan-made liveries for the Genesis manufacturer, and this is the Group 4 counterpart. Group 3 was showcased in the previous video, so make sure you go and watch that one if you're interested there. But thanks very much, Scotty. So this was the pit stop. This is all we've got to do now. So you can see I'm putting in some consistent laps. Like I've made minimal errors. My entire first stint was just consistent laps, all in the sort of mid to low 2 minutes. And then by the time we complete the pit stop with half the tank of fuel and the fresh tyres, we're actually in the 59. So we set a 59.9 and a 59.6. It's a 2 minute .0, but I'm going to show you this lap here and exactly what we're doing around Trial Mountain. So just a tiny dab of brake, get the rear pointed into the turn 1, and you should be able to get turn 2 and turn 3 flat out as long as you get that line correct, slightly wide there, braking in between the end of the orange barrier on the right and the beginning of the tunnel. And then we get it nice and close to this apex, accelerate over the crest, be sure not to wash wide, looking on the sort of right hand side, braking just on the first GoPro banner on the right hand side, and then upshift to third and get back on the power before the apex, it's 2/10 up, braking on the end of the curb on the left hand side, make sure we meet that apex, middle of the track, back over to the right, dab of the brake right on the corner marker, and make sure we get right to the inside there. There's a load of dirt that's fallen down onto the track, but you can drive over that and there's no effect on the grip. It is simply a visual addition to Trial Mountain at turn 8. Down the back straight, which I believe is a little over a kilometre long, we're going to be just focusing on short shifting. We're short shifting at about 50%, but I think for this lap we were going for a little bit of a faster lap, so I'm extending the gear changes out a little bit. We actually had a tiny amount of fuel to play with in order to do this as well. We were braking just after the orange sign on the right hand side at the 180-degree loop at the end of the back straight, braking just as we go over the crest here and try and open up this right-hander, but not too much because it's a little downhill corner, easy to wash wide, heading down the hill, braking just before the compression, and then trail brake, turn it in just as we finish the compression, and then we head out to the exit. Make sure you don't run too far onto the grass. You really want to just keep it on the curb. Someone else is in the pits. We'll see if we make that position. I'm braking just on the last. There's like a couple of little changes in colour on the barrier on the left-hand side, braking just before the last one, and then early upshift to third, hard on the power out of the final turn, and we're just going to keep it. I said we were going to keep it on the left-hand side. You would if you were in qualifying, but because we are going to be eventually migrating over to the right-hand side in order to take the left-hander at turn 1, we move over to the right-hand side of the track, during which we finally set the fastest lap of the race at 59.3. That's what we were able to do. We were stuck in 14th with a 4.4 second gap to Darth Chan ahead and a 2.3 second gap to Rafale behind. So we were correct in making that move on Rafale earlier in the race, because in the long run we were actually faster than him. But this is the end of the final lap. But the thing I have to look out for here, I've done that sort of fast lap on lap 11, and that's actually left me a little bit short on fuel. I've only got 1%, and I've probably got another kilometre to go. It's really not looking good as we exit turn 13. I know you said 14, but that's the upcoming corner. That's gone down to 0%. We've still got one acceleration period to go, so I'll whack that bad boy up into fuel map 6 with a 2.3 or 2.8 second gap behind now. I'm not really too worried about Rafale sort of overtaking me while I go into fuel map 6. I'd be worried about running out about here, because that probably wouldn't be any good in terms of trying to keep this position from Rafale, but we eventually did have just enough fuel to sort of roll over and coast over the finish line to bring home a 14th position. There's nothing more I could have done there. Nothing more. That's all I've got. That's it. That's everything I had in this car. I was a little bit confused because Twitchy was able to drive the car so well to his sort of mid to high top 10 position. So ultimately that 14th spot there was only 178 points. It was at this sort of time where I was thinking, if I put that identical drive in the split below me, I would probably be up towards the front of the grid and probably be fighting for maybe something in the 220s, 230s. So I think this point score is really reflective of the level of competition from the split I was in, which by the way is completely out of my control. So, you know, I was sort of just going, I was happy with the way I drove the car. It was just unfortunate I was in this top split where the competition is so high. But really, ultimately, I think that pace I showed there was probably good enough for maybe a top 5 in the split below me. So, there's not really much else I could have done. I set consistent, clean laps. Like every single lap of my first stint was about as good as I could get in the mid to low 2 minutes, and then the second stint was about as good as I could get. I think there were 3 59s in there, and the rest of them were 2 minutes, apart from the last lap, but I had to save fuel at the end, and that doesn't matter at that stage anyway. But yeah, a little bit of a disappointing round, a little bit of a difficult round, not quite understanding how to extract this pace from the G70, but I think I was quite limited by the fact I had to fuel save quite significantly, and the power peak of this car sits right at the top end of the rev range, so short shifting is really quite detrimental to pace, which might probably explain why I struggled so much. But you know, I guess Twitchy was able to make it work, so there's something I was doing wrong, but I think that's all a learning opportunity for the future. But that's actually going to round out this manufacturer's season today. I managed to get 453 points, which actually put me 4th for Genesis, so I think under the circumstances I actually didn't perform too badly. I was just that points for that round you've just watched, I think was quite limited by the fact I was placed in top split, where I think I could have got a lot more points from actually performing that drive in a split below me. But anyway, that's going to finish up the video today, so do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos and streams from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. That's going to be it for this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.